When I discovered that the $500,000 I had scraped together and borrowed had been reduced to just $250 in my bank account, I was completely stunned. I was about to call the police right then and there, but my wife immediately grabbed my phone and threw it on the floor, her face full of disdain as she said, "Stop overreacting. I sent the money to Makoto." I asked her angrily why she had sent money to her childhood friend. She replied, "Makoto's company is just starting out. He needs a good car to make a good impression. How else is he supposed to do business? And didn't you say before that your money is my money, so I can spend it however I want?" I stared at my wife, both familiar and unfamiliar to me in that moment, speechless, because that $500,000 was supposed to be her lifeline. Without the money, it wouldn't be me who died, it would be her. Chapter 1. The next day was the day I had scheduled to visit the hospital with the doctor. I took my bank card from the bedroom and tried hard to keep my face from showing too much sadness. I wanted to tell Willow about her terminal illness properly, but when I checked my balance through the app, I almost fainted. The balance that used to be $50,000 had turned into $250. My hands were trembling, and it took me a long time to come to my senses and think of calling the police. Just as I was about to do that, Willow came back home and walked into the bedroom to change clothes. She was startled by my pale face and asked, "George, who are you showing that face to?" Panicked, I said, "Honey, the money in the account is gone." Willow's expression flickered for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. I said, "No, there was $50,000 in there. I have to report this. Someone must have stolen it." Before I could finish my sentence, Willow, looking indifferent, interrupted me. "Don't make a big deal out of it." I took the money. I let out a breath of relief and said, "You need to transfer the money back. I have to go to the hospital today." Willow rolled her eyes and interrupted me again. "Give it back to you." "Can't. It's already spent. I've used it all up." I knew Willow had a habit of spending money extravagantly, but I couldn't believe she could spend $50,000 in one day. With disbelief, I asked, "What did you spend $50,000 on in one day?" Willow was getting annoyed by my persistence, so she sighed and said, "Makoto's company just started, and he needs a nice car to make a good impression. How else is he supposed to do business? Besides, didn't you say before that your money is my money? I should be able to spend it however I want. Buying a car is a big deal for a man. If I don't support him now, I'll ruin his whole life. That $50,000 would just sit there useless. Giving it to Makoto is spending money wisely. Makoto even said I saved his life." Makoto. I felt my head spinning with anger, and a chill ran through my body. Grinding my teeth, I said, "Your childhood friend Makoto, you need to get the money back. This is serious. This is." Before I could finish, Willow slapped me across the face. I stood frozen in place from the shock of the slap. Willow scolded, "What's your problem? Huh? It's just $500,000. Is it really worth acting like this?" "Don't worry, Makoto's going to pay me back once his company is stable. Not just $500,000. Even $5 million will be nothing for him to return. You think everyone's like you, throwing a fit over $500,000? Makoto's going to be the boss of a publicly traded company. If we weren't childhood friends, like family, do you really think he'd need your $500,000? This is a form of investment. Do you get it?" I was speechless. $5 million. She was dreaming, and she believed it. Seems like the illness has taken its toll. I tried my best to control my emotions and spoke as calmly as I could. "No, $50,000, $50 million. Or even $50 billion, none of that matters. You need to get the $500,000 back right now. It's really important. It's our lifeline." Willow rolled her eyes and said, "The money is already spent. Do you want me to lose face? Let me tell you, even if that $500,000 really is your lifeline, I'm not giving it back. Besides, your worthless life probably isn't even worth that much money." Chapter 2. Damn. After hearing her say that, I actually became a bit calmer. Willow has always thought I'm incapable. There was a time when she wanted a handbag worth $100,000, but I couldn't bring myself to buy it for her. At that time, I was borrowing money and saving up for her medical bills, so I couldn't afford a small handbag worth $10,000, let alone $100,000. But now, Willow thought I had $500,000 saved up and refused to spend it on her. Now she was insulting me like this, making me look like a fool. Fine, if that's how it is, then so be it. But no matter what, the money shouldn't be given away for free. So I said, "If you're not going, then I'll go ask for it myself. If he doesn't return it, I'll sue him. Let's see who wins." Willow completely ignored me and, in fact, got angry at me for being persistent. She said, "Are you out of your mind? If you go now, where am I supposed to put my face?" Willow stopped midway through her sentence, then continued, "I can go get the money, but Makoto lives far away from us. If I get the money, it'll be too late. I'll just have to stay at a nearby hotel for the night." Saying that, she hummed a tune and went back to her bedroom to pick out clothes. She added, "Don't call me tonight to bother me, okay?" I stood at the door, watching Willow pick out clothes, holding up a dress to herself and comparing it to her body. After a while, she chose a black form-fitting dress. Then, she casually grabbed a set of sexy lingerie and stockings. Just as she was about to put them on, she saw me still standing there at the door with an annoyed look. She rolled her eyes and slammed the door shut. She said, "You're always staring at me like a pervert. It's disgusting." I looked at the closed bedroom door and sighed. In the 3 years I'd been married to Willow, our relationship had been stable, though we weren't overly affectionate. We rarely had conflicts. But last year, after Willow's childhood friend Makoto divorced and came back to our hometown, everything changed after they reconnected. Willow started staying out all night, and we began fighting more and more. And every time I got upset, she would accuse me of being petty and having a dirty mind, insisting that she and Makoto were completely innocent. She would say, if I had anything with Makoto, we would have already gotten married. It wouldn't have been your turn. I, being rather thick-skinned, thought there was some truth to what Willow said and didn't think too much of it. In fact, I even convinced myself that her recent behavior was because of her terminal illness, that her emotional instability was the cause. I just focused on gathering the funds for her surgery, hoping to use half of my liver to save her. Once she recovered, she would understand my good intentions, and we could live a good life together. But now, I had come to my senses. Willow wasn't behaving like this because of her illness. She simply liked Makoto and had grown to loathe me. After a while, Willow finished getting ready and came out. She wore the popular, natural look, makeup, and her figure was accentuated by the tight dress. Even if my mind was foggy, I could tell she wasn't going to ask for the money back. It was more like she was going out to deliver something. At that moment, I sighed deeply and said, "Willow, let's get a divorce." As I said that, I began contacting a lawyer to draft the divorce agreement. Right now, the only asset left in the house was a few $100s. As for whether Willow had any private assets, I had no idea. Then there was the house. This ancestral home was something my parents got with their retirement money. Combined with my hard work, there was no way I was going to give it to Willow. As for whether Willow had any personal assets, I didn't know, and I didn't want to investigate. But at that moment, Willow didn't hear what I said about the divorce. After finishing her preparations, she walked straight out the door. I was left behind, staring at the divorce agreement I had just received. In a daze, my eyes slowly filled with tears, and the divorce agreement in front of me became more and more blurry. I thought back on the 3 years we had been married. I considered myself a good husband, but she was no longer a good wife. Chapter 3. As dawn broke, I had just fallen asleep when I was awakened by a loud bang. The door slammed shut. Willow was back. She staggered in her high heels. Her cheeks flushed, and the smell of alcohol was overwhelming even from a distance. The red marks on her neck were glaringly obvious. They were unmistakably hickeys. A sharp pain shot through my heart. My hands clenched tightly, and I could feel my bones creaking under the pressure. I sighed and shook my head, no longer wanting to argue with her. I said slowly, "Willow, let's get a divorce." This time, Willow heard me clearly. The stench of alcohol around her seemed to dissipate, and her awareness slowly returned. A look of disbelief spread across her face. I helplessly continued, "I've already drafted the divorce agreement. It's on the table in the living room. You just need to sign it." After the initial shock, Willow frowned deeply, pointing at me and cursing. "George, you're so petty. I really didn't misjudge you. It's just $500,000. What's the big deal?" I looked at Willow coldly, my heart devoid of any emotion. I asked, "$500,000, don't you know where those hickeys on your neck came from?" My tone was calm, but each word hit her like a hammer to her heart. Willow's face turned pale instantly. She opened her mouth, probably to say it was just mosquito bites, but no words came out. It seemed like she had finally realized. The problem between us went far beyond the $500,000. I spoke slowly. "Willow, you've changed. You've become someone I don't recognize. I don't know what you've been doing outside, but I can't tolerate this life anymore. Let's get a divorce. It's better for both of us." I reaffirmed my decision and turned to leave the bathroom. Willow came out of the bathroom, grabbed the divorce agreement from the table, and looked at it with rage. Her face darkened with fury. She suddenly threw the agreement at my face and shouted, "I didn't expect this from you. Fine, you want a divorce. This house is mine, and you'll leave with nothing." Hearing that, I felt a mixture of emotions. This house was bought with my parents' retirement savings, money they had worked so hard to save. If I gave it to Willow, she would definitely let Makoto move in. What would my parents, if they were still alive, think if they saw their hard-earned home being tainted by those two? Willow's words truly chilled me. All the money in the house had already been given to Makoto. Now she was demanding I leave with nothing. It was a far cry from the happiness we had when we got married. Now, it felt like utter disgrace. I looked at Willow and said, "This house must stay with me, and you must return that $500,000. Willow froze when she heard that. Her eyes darted around. as if she was considering something. After a long pause, she changed her expression to one of false sweetness and said softly, "George, I'll think about it. I need to consider the house and the money carefully." I sighed softly and shook my head in helplessness. I said, "Fine. Take your time and think it over." With that, I walked into the bedroom. Even though Willow and I lived under the same roof, we had been separated for a long time. Our only son was living with Willow's mother because we didn't have the time to take care of him. Since Willow liked Makoto so much, I was sure she would agree to the divorce. She would even be willing to leave the house to me if I insisted. Sigh. I'm sure she must have already discussed it with that guy. Chapter 4. But it's fine. I also need to find an opportunity to bring my son back and have a good talk with him. My son's relationship with Willow isn't exactly good. In fact, it can be described as being like strangers. Since he was born and after his first month, I've been the one taking care of him. If I hadn't witnessed the moment he was carried out of the delivery room, I wouldn't even believe the child was born by her. People always say that women are weak, but once they become mothers, they become strong. But with Willow, I don't see the slightest trace of maternal love. As expected, around 11 or 12 at night, I heard her talking and laughing with Makoto from the next room, which is Willow's bedroom. The sound insulation between the rooms isn't very good, so I could hear them clearly. "Makoto, that guy said he wants a divorce." "How great," Willow said. Makoto responded, "A divorce? Really? So that means I can get you openly?" Willow replied, "But that man said he wants me to leave with nothing." The rest of their conversation got quieter, and I couldn't hear it clearly, but based on what I know about this Makoto, he's nothing but a leech, a phoenix man. He's only here for Willow's money. If Willow leaves with nothing, it's definitely not good for Makoto. In other words, he would never agree to it. If Willow leaves with nothing, then what's Makoto going to live on? Do you really think he loves Willow? He's just after the benefits Willow can provide. From what I've discussed with the lawyer, if it comes to a divorce lawsuit and we can prove Willow's infidelity, it would be very beneficial evidence for me. Willow would probably leave with nothing. The sounds from the next room kept stabbing at my heart. At this moment, Willow seemed like a horny cat, being teased by Makoto, acting all dazed. Every now and then, her soft, coquettish voice could be heard. After all these years of marriage, I had never heard her act like this. I always thought she didn't like this, but it turns out I was wrong. It wasn't that she didn't like it, it was just that I wasn't the person she truly desired. Willow said, "Makoto, your kiss is so annoying. You've ruined my neck." Makoto responded, "Am I better or your husband?" Willow snorted coldly, "So annoying. I already know. Why are you asking?" Her laugh, mixed with those long, coquettish sounds, felt like a sharp dagger. Each laugh, each sound, pierced through my remaining pride and self-respect, tearing it apart. My eyes were bloodshot, and I almost wanted to grab a knife and confront Makoto right then and there, but I knew that wouldn't be right. Impulse is the devil. Makoto wasn't worth me losing control. I want to repay them for all the hurt I've received. That entire night, I couldn't sleep. Pain and sorrow mixed together, and it made me decide to take revenge on them. To gather evidence of Willow's infidelity, I decided to take a leave from work and follow her. I made sure to dress carefully, wearing clothes that Willow had never seen me wear before. I put on a black baseball cap and a mask to avoid being recognized. I even rented a car to be extra cautious. Willow usually gets off work early, around 3 p.m., but since Makoto came back, she always comes home late. Whenever I asked her, she would always say, "Why do you care? You should spend that time earning money instead of just sitting at home." After asking her a few times, I stopped. I had never suspected Willow of cheating before, because I always believed whatever she said. Chapter 5. It wasn't because I was stupid, but because I trusted her too much, and the one who hurt me was the person I trusted the most. I slumped over the steering wheel, waiting for Willow to finish work. As her workday was about to end, a black Audi pulled up downstairs from Willow's company. The car had a brand new license plate, and its glossy black body gleamed under the sunlight. The cool wheels shone with a golden glint. I recognized the car. It was the latest model of Audi. I had spent several days browsing online, but unfortunately, I didn't have enough money to buy it. All I could do was admire it. At that moment, Willow walked out of the company with her head lowered, looking shy. One of her female colleagues teased her, "Willow, your boyfriend's here again, picking you up in a new car." Willow waved her hand dismissively and said, "Stop joking, he's just a friend." The colleague laughed and said, "What kind of friend is that, buying you a new car? You can't hide it from us, we can tell. This guy's so much better than your boyfriend." The colleague waved goodbye to Willow. Willow didn't argue, but instead had a satisfied look on her face. That's when I realized the one driving the black Audi was Makoto. Willow had said that she bought this new car for Makoto with $500,000. A sharp pain pierced my heart. I couldn't help but recall the countless hours I spent gathering money to pay for her cancer treatment. When I first learned Willow had cancer, I nearly went mad. Out of fear that she might give up on herself, I didn't tell her. Instead, I decided to secretly sell everything I had to raise money for her treatment. I even humbly borrowed money from relatives and friends, anyone I could find. I left no stone unturned. Any connection I had, I tried. In the end, I managed to raise the $500,000. I even considered selling our house to make sure she could get the treatment she needed. But now, she used the money I scraped together to buy Makoto a car. I felt like I was trapped in an icy cold cellar. Willow wore a red strapless top and black stockings, stepping into Makoto's car with high heels, swaying seductively. When we went on dates, Willow would never dress like this. Sometimes, she wouldn't even wear makeup, saying it was to save me money. At the time, I believed her, thinking she was a rare and wonderful wife. But now, reality slapped me in the face. After getting into the car, the vehicle didn't drive off immediately. It stayed still for quite a while. Through the car window, I saw Willow and Makoto kissing. Her red lips were swollen and bruised, and her eyes were glazed with desire. The sight made me choke with pain. She was doing this right downstairs from her office with Makoto. Did she think I was a fool? Although there was no longer any doubt about Willow's infidelity, seeing this still caused me pain. It wasn't because I was heartbroken over her cheating, but because I felt I wasn't worth this betrayal. I pulled out my phone and recorded the scene. All these years, I worked so hard, earning money for this little family. I once thought marrying Willow was the happiest thing in my life, but I never imagined reality would strike me so hard. The car slowly drove off. I quickly stepped on the gas and followed it. After a long drive, the Audi finally stopped in front of a restaurant. Willow was sitting across from a man, laughing and chatting, the atmosphere light and friendly. This was the first time I'd seen Makoto in all this time. He looked just the same as before. It was as if time hadn't left a mark on him. Chapter 6. Looking at myself. All these years of working tirelessly for the family had worn away my sharp edges. I had become like a skeleton drained of life by the demands of family, completely losing the once ambitious and spirited version of myself. Makoto wore a well-tailored white shirt. His hair was meticulously styled, giving off a fashionable yet effortless vibe. In contrast, my clothes seemed so casual and disheveled. It felt as if I had completely lost my love and pursuit of life. Makoto placed a piece of fruit on a fork and presented it to Willow. Willow slightly parted her lips, took the fruit from Makoto's hand, and ate it in one bite, showing a satisfied smile. Makoto gently wiped away the salad dressing from the corner of her mouth with his finger. They looked like a couple deeply in love. In that moment, my heart felt like it was being sliced open. I had never seen her so relaxed and happy. It was as if all her smiles and tenderness were given to this man, and not to me. I hid in a corner, silently observing them. I tried to catch any clues from their conversation, but the distance was too far, and I couldn't make out what they were saying. All I could see was the love and understanding in their eyes, something I had never seen in hers. "Sir, is there anything you need?" A waiter walked up to me. I instinctively lowered my cap and then glanced at the menu. A small cake for 2,000 yuan. A glass of juice for 500 yuan. Exorbitant prices. I was taken aback. Makoto had brought Willow here to eat such extravagant food. I frowned and gently closed the menu, my heart filled with mixed emotions. The prices at this restaurant far exceeded my expectations. Meanwhile, I, someone who worked day and night for the family, living frugally, had to bring my own egg when I bought a pancake. I watched as Willow and Makoto enjoyed their high-end meal, savoring each other's company. My heart felt as if something had grabbed it tightly, a painful knot that I could barely bear. If I hadn't married Willow, my life could have been so much more carefree. With a monthly salary of 20,000 yuan, I could have lived comfortably, eating well and enjoying life. But Willow's spending was too much. As soon as my salary came in, I transferred it directly into her account. At one point, I even became immersed in this dynamic, thinking it was a sign of me being a good husband who loved his wife. On a 20,000 yuan salary, I didn't even allow myself to smoke expensive cigarettes, and I would only buy clothes on sale at the end of the season. I did all this so that Willow wouldn't regret marrying me and could be happy. I shook my head and glanced at the waiter. "1 glass of plain water, please." The waiter looked surprised and, for a moment, a hint of disdain appeared in her eyes. She then took the menu and left. She returned with a glass of water. I continued to observe Makoto and Willow. After their intimate meal, the two of them walked away, arms linked. I took pictures of their affectionate moments from a distance. Then, I followed them from behind. Chapter 7. The photos I took became the only evidence of this painful relationship. I followed them from a distance. Filled with conflict and inner turmoil, they walked through the busy streets and entered a high-end residential area. I stood at the entrance of the complex, watching as they took the elevator up. A few minutes later, I followed them up. This neighborhood wasn't busy during the day. It seemed like this was Makoto's place. I lowered my footsteps and kept a safe distance behind them. Willow was such a shameless slut. My mind was filled with curses. What happened next completely shocked me. Before even entering the apartment, Willow and Makoto were already tightly embracing each other. They were entwined, with tender looks in their eyes, filled with lust. It was like thunder striking the earth. Makoto's hands were also on places they had no business being. The image of their passionate entanglement made me feel like the world was spinning around me. The fury inside me seemed to want to consume me whole. I tried to push aside the images of Willow and I together, but the disgust was overwhelming. What a cheap slut. I quickly took out my phone and captured the scene. Afterward, I left that filthy place. Downstairs, I pulled out my phone and dialed Willow's number. It rang for a long time before finally being picked up. I even heard Makoto's voice on the line. He said, "Who's this? Hang up." His voice was breathy, as though he was out of breath. Willow sounded impatient as she replied, "What do you want? Just say it." I held back my rage and asked, "Where are you? What's it to you? If there's something, just say it. Stop wasting time," she replied, her voice tinged with annoyance and impatience. I could hear the soft, coquettish sound she was making. I knew exactly what she was doing with Makoto, but I didn't confront her. Instead, I said, "I'm making dinner at home. Do you want to come back and eat?" Willow's tone was unfriendly, laced with anger and urgency. "I'm not eating. We have a meeting at the company. I'll be back late," she replied. The phone slipped from my hand, and the sound of it hitting the floor echoed through the empty hallway. I stood frozen in place, as if the whole world had come to a halt. It suddenly dawned on me. So, all those times she said she had a meeting at the company, those were just excuses. It was chilling to think about. If this had happened before, I would have believed her without a doubt. She'd probably come home and even say, "Honey, I know you've been working hard." I slowly picked up my phone, staring at the screen as it displayed the call ended notification. In that moment, I knew this relationship had reached its end. That night, as usual, Willow came home late. I had already fallen asleep. When she came in, she made a lot of noise, not caring at all about my feelings. The door slammed shut with force. Then she went into the bathroom. The sound of water flowing filled the space. If it had been before, I would have saved her some dinner and laid out clothes for her to shower. Now, thinking back on how willingly I gave so much of myself, it felt pathetic. After she finished washing up, she knocked on my bedroom door. When I didn't open, she simply pushed the door open and walked in. She was wearing a very thin nightgown. The strapless gown barely covered the necessary areas. Chapter 8. The marks on her body from Makoto made the evidence even more obvious. There were marks on her arms, chest, and neck, many places. Willow. Oh Willow. Now, you're not even bothering to hide it anymore. A wave of disappointment washed over me. Willow looked at me with disdain. After a moment, she slowly spoke. "I came to talk about the divorce. I've made up my mind." I sat up from the bed and said seriously, "Yeah, divorce is probably best for both of us. No point in dragging this out." It almost felt like I was saying this to myself. Willow wasn't about to cling to me. She'd rather sever ties with me right away and never see me again. Ever since Makoto appeared, Willow's heart had left this home. Willow gave a wicked smile, not even bothering to look at me. Her eyes landed on our wedding photo. In it, we were smiling brightly, our faces filled with happiness. It looked as if the other person was our entire world. Willow glanced at me and said, "Divorce is fine, but I want the house. And that $500,000 you got me for my treatment. Plus, you owe me $1 million for compensation." My pupils dilated, completely taken aback by Willow's bold demands. She cheated on me, left me with nothing, and now she wanted me to pay her $1 million for compensation. What was she compensating for? "Willow, I really underestimated you," I sneered and slowly said. "This is what Makoto taught you, isn't it?" At the mention of Makoto, Willow's face changed instantly. It was as if I'd stripped her bare. Flushed with anger, she snapped, "George, what are you implying? Am I really so worthless to you?" I didn't answer, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of amusement watching Willow react this way. If this had happened before, I would have believed her without a second thought. I would have apologized for my suspicions. But now, Willow was truly a great actress. Even the Oscars owed her a golden statuette. She huffed and said, "Whatever you think, these are my demands. You either agree, or you'll have to." Willow's tone was harsh and threatening. By now, my heart had frozen over completely. I'd been thoroughly wounded by Willow. The last time I felt this much pain was when my parents passed away. It took me half a year to get over it. I thought I'd never feel this much pain again in my life, but now, it seemed like I was about to go through it all over again. I took a moment to steady myself before responding. "I don't agree." The moment I said no, Willow's face darkened. When I mentioned Makoto, her expression instantly turned livid. It was as if I'd struck a raw nerve. Her eyes widened, her lips pressed tightly together, and her entire body radiated an unspeakable rage. "George, you actually refuse?" Willow's voice was sharp and piercing, as if it could tear the entire room apart. I responded coldly. "What? You think I should just accept your demands? Don't think I don't know what you and Makoto have been up to." Chapter 9. If I hadn't been this angry, I wouldn't have said those things to Willow. Arguing with someone like her was a waste of breath. She'd only wake up when life slapped her hard in the face. Willow seemed stunned by my words. First, there was shock, and after that faded. Her face filled with anger. She said, "Who do you think you are? What right do you have to criticize me? Look at yourself. You have nothing. I've had enough of this life. I want a divorce. I want to pursue my own happiness." Willow's words were sharp and cutting. If I had to live with a woman like this for a few more years, I might end up with a terminal illness. Nothing. Pursuing happiness. She said it as if she was completely justified. Only someone like Willow could so shamelessly call infidelity pursuing happiness. Cheating in marriage, the condemnation of society, and yet she painted it as some noble pursuit. I didn't want to argue with her anymore. I simply replied, "Do whatever you want. I'm not giving you a single penny. Oh, and that 500,000 you gave to Makoto, you better get it back to me." With that, I climbed into bed, no longer paying her any attention. She was furious, her face turning pale with anger. She clutched her chest, her emotions almost bursting. Through gritted teeth, she spat, "We'll see if you have the guts." Seeing that I wasn't responding, Willow stormed off, slamming the door behind her. The next day, I received Willow's divorce papers. This wasn't a surprise to me. I wanted Willow to be the one to file for divorce first. She had a terminal illness, and if I had initiated the divorce and she was later diagnosed, everyone would assume I had known about her illness and used it as an excuse to leave her. I'd be left with a terrible reputation. No, the truth was, Willow cheated. Not that I didn't want to save her. So her filing for divorce was actually the best outcome. The following day, I brought our child back from my hometown. Before I left, Lou's mother told me to treat Willow kindly. She said the child was spoiled, and I needed to be more tolerant of her. I didn't say much, just nodded. Lou's parents hadn't worked for years. Since my own parents passed away early, I had been financially supporting her family as well. As for Willow, the money she earned wasn't even enough for herself. She was always spending mine. All that talk about how hard she had it and how I should be more tolerant, that was all nonsense. I had been too tolerant, too indulgent, and it had led to her cheating and doing these disgusting things to me. The Lou family was like a parasite, feeding off me. For the past few days, the news of my divorce with Willow spread like wildfire. Many friends and family called, urging me not to divorce. I explained the situation to each one, not because I wanted a divorce, but because Willow had cheated and was chasing her own happiness. When I spoke with emotion, even a grown man like me couldn't hold back the tears. Those who had called to comfort me were left speechless. They no longer tried to convince me but instead started comforting me, telling me not to be sad, that being single was fine too. Willow's mother even came in person. She stormed into the house, pointing her finger at me and immediately started cursing me out. Chapter 10. She said, "Where has Willow gone wrong for you to want a divorce? Without our Willow, do you think you'd have what you have today?" My son stood in front of me, his small body trying to protect me. Touched, I pulled him behind me. I coldly said, "The one who wants a divorce is your daughter, not me." Lou's mother, who usually had a sharp and calculating expression, now looked genuinely stunned. I could almost see her thinking, what has gone wrong with Willow? Why does she want to divorce? Lou's mother didn't believe it and kept arguing with me. She kept praising Willow, telling me not to take my good fortune for granted. Yes, Willow, if it weren't for her, I think my life could be much better now. Everything that has gone wrong in my life, it's all thanks to her. Not wanting my son to witness the wickedness of human nature, I sent him directly to the study. Then I coldly told Lou's mother, "If you don't believe me, just call Willow directly." After saying that, I didn't continue engaging with her. If it weren't for the fact that I couldn't yet show her the photos I had taken, I would have thrown those disgusting pictures in her face. Let her see how shameful her daughter truly was. But right now, it wasn't necessary. Lou's mother, trembling, dialed Willow's number. Once the call connected, she deliberately avoided me and asked softly, "Willow, George says you want a divorce. Is that true?" After a moment, Lou's mother's face changed dramatically, as though she had heard something utterly unbelievable. She said, "No, you can't divorce, Willow. Do you know that now we..." At this point, Lou's mother was at her emotional peak, her face twisted with rage, a terrifying sight. I could almost guess what Willow said. It was probably a simple yes. Willow likely agreed to the divorce. For her, she couldn't wait to get divorced and be with Makoto. After the call ended, Lou's mother shot me a glance and said nothing more, but I could see her face was quite dark, like she had been hit with some kind of shock. I didn't bother with her anymore and walked into the study. Although my son had been living with his grandmother for the past 2 years, I saw him every weekend, and he spent most of his time at school. In name, I still had more contact with him than anyone else. So, when Lou's mother yelled at me earlier, my son had stood in front of me to protect me. I was deeply moved. I may have lost my family, my relatives, and my wife, but in this world, I still have my son. He loves me, and I love him. I walked over and took my son's hand, thinking for a moment before saying, "David, Mommy and Daddy are getting a divorce. Would you like to live with Daddy or Mommy?" My son's large eyes immediately filled with tears. He looked so pitiful. It broke my heart. I gently wiped the tears from his face, my own expression calm. He looked up at me and asked, "Does that mean Mommy doesn't want me?" His small voice trembled with uncertainty. I didn't want to hurt him, but he deserved to know the truth about the divorce. I softly replied, "Daddy wants you. You'll live with Daddy from now on." David nodded obediently, not crying or throwing a tantrum. For his age, his maturity was beyond what should have been expected. That evening, Willow returned home reeking of alcohol. My son and I were eating dinner in the living room. Willow had an unhappy look on her face and seemed displeased. It was rare for her to return home so early. Chapter 11. But she didn't even look at us as she walked straight into her room. It was obvious that she had fought with Makoto. I put a chicken leg on my son's plate and gently patted his head. For me, Willow and Makoto fighting wasn't a good thing at all. What if she refused to divorce? Then this shameful reputation would be mine to bear. After putting my son to bed that night, I could still hear sounds coming from Willow's room. It was clear she was talking to Makoto. On the other end, Makoto said, "I told you to investigate how much property that guy has under his name." Willow responded, "How would I know? How do I even investigate? I don't know anything about that." Willow had a habit. She liked to keep the volume loud during phone calls and always use speakerphone, so I could hear their entire conversation clearly. It turned out Makoto was instructing Willow on how to calculate assets. No wonder she came home looking so angry. She must have argued with Makoto about the divorce. It was so true, day guard, night guard, but the family thief is hardest to prevent. Now she was starting to scheme against me. For all these years, every month's salary was deposited into her account. She didn't even have $100 of her own. When I found out she had a terminal illness, my first reaction was to do whatever it took to save her. But now, she was conspiring with another man to plot against me. Just thinking about it made me laugh bitterly. The conversation ended, and Willow angrily walked to my room. She didn't even bother knocking. She asked, "George, where's the money? Did you hide it somewhere?" Willow's opening words were a direct blow. I didn't even know how to respond to this unreasonable person. I said, "What money? Don't you know? All these years, every penny has gone into your account. If anyone's hiding money, it should be you, right?" My son wasn't sleeping in the same room as me. Otherwise, if he saw his mother like this, it would likely leave a lifelong shadow on him. After a brief pause, Willow continued, "Who knows if you've hidden it? Where did all the money go? No wonder you want a divorce. You must be hiding money. You really are heartless." Willow, realizing she was in the wrong, started to argue with me wildly. She threw a barrage of angry insults at me. Her words deeply pierced my heart. At first, I thought I had become numb to the pain, but I never imagined it could hurt this much. For these years, I had lived frugally, like an ox in a production team, working myself to the bone. I woke up earlier than a rooster and went to bed later than a dog. All of it for this little family. I never once considered my own needs, let alone having any hidden savings. The clothes I wore were faded, some even patched up, and this is how I ended up. Willow, you really are the kind of person who eats others alive and leaves nothing behind. I looked at her beautiful, captivating face, and I felt a chill rising from my back. Seeing I didn't respond, Willow shouted at me, "Say something. Are you too scared to speak now?" I coldly replied, "Money? You're asking me about money? Wasn't that money used to buy a car for Makoto? Now you come asking me about money." Willow seemed choked by my words and froze for a moment. Then, in a fit of rage and embarrassment, she spat out, "Don't let me find out you've got any private assets, or I'll make you regret it." With a loud slam of the door, Willow left. Chapter 12. As I listened to the harsh words from the other side, my heart was full of mixed emotions. The school called to inform me that there would be a parent-teacher meeting, and they recommended that the mother attend, as the topic would focus on female education. I thought about calling Willow to ask her to attend the meeting, just to avoid leaving any regrets in our son's heart, but when I called her, her impatient voice came through the phone. "What is it?" I said. "David's school is organizing a parent meeting. It would be best if his mother could attend." Before I could finish my sentence, Willow cut me off with a harsh shout. "What parent meeting? Don't bother me with such small things. What's the point of you even being involved? You're so useless." I ended the call, feeling disappointed. I never imagined that she would have this attitude toward our son's affairs. It really made my heart ache. 4 years, I've been the one handling all of David's matters. Not only did I have to manage everything at home, but after work, I also helped him with his studies. Fortunately, David was well behaved and didn't cause trouble. I looked at him, and his face was filled with determination. He said, "Dad, it's fine. You can come with me. It's okay if Mom doesn't want to come." I didn't expect him to say something like that. It caught me off guard, and I felt a mix of surprise and sorrow. He was being so mature that it made me both proud and heartbroken. But this was a situation we had no choice but to face. I took my son to the school. There were already many parents waiting at the entrance, most of them mothers bringing their children. It felt like I was the only odd one out. However, David didn't seem to care about that at all. Someone asked, "You must be David's parent, right? David is doing well in his studies. Why didn't his mother come?" Today, the focus is on having the mother attend. A young female teacher warmly greeted me. I awkwardly smiled and made up an excuse to brush off the question. But deep down, I couldn't help but feel a bit melancholy. What kind of mother would behave this way? Luckily, David wasn't attached to Willow, or this situation would have been much more troublesome. During the parent meeting, one of the segments required the children to talk about their mother's strengths and weaknesses. I was curious to see what David would say. When the other kids went up to speak, they all talked about how great their mothers were, even mentioning small flaws if they had to. But when it was David's turn, he stunned me. He said, "My mom is a wicked person. She doesn't like my dad but still married him. She's always trying to trick my dad out of money, and she doesn't have any good qualities. I don't like her at all." David's words shocked me. The other parents were equally stunned. I had always thought David didn't understand the situation with Willow, but it turned out he was more aware than I thought. This made my eyes redden. The pain caused by Willow these days seemed to ease a little. All eyes were now on me. When I realized this, I gave an awkward smile and quickly pulled David down from the stage. I said, "Children speak without thinking. Children speak without thinking." When we got home, Willow had apparently lost her mind. She had brought Makoto back with her. When the cat's away, the mice will play. Makoto sat comfortably on the couch, his hands naturally placed on either side, looking completely at ease, as if this were his own home. Chapter 13. The moment I walked in, there was a sneer of disdain and amusement in Makoto's eyes. He said, "Who do I have to thank for this? You even brought a kid back with you." I gave Makoto a complex look, about to speak, when my son beat me to it. "Get lost, you bad guy." My son threw his toy gun directly at Makoto. The gun hit Makoto with a thud, and that was enough to send him into a full-blown rage. His face darkened, and he shouted, "You're both a bunch of useless freaks." At that moment, Willow walked out. She was wearing a bathrobe, and the strong scent of perfume filled the air. After all these years, I had rarely seen her take a bath, let alone apply any scent afterward. Her hair was still wet, indicating she had probably rushed out after hearing the noise from outside. She asked, "George, what's going on? Why didn't you stop David? What if he hurt Makoto? Can you afford the compensation?" Willow rushed forward, her face full of concern, and started brushing off Makoto's clothes. She said, "Are you all right?" Looking at Willow's concerned expression, it was laughable. When was the last time she showed this kind of concern for me? I used to think Willow was just a cold person, not good with words, but now I realized it wasn't that. She just reserved her concern for the people she wanted to give it to. Apparently, my son had a lower standing in her heart than Makoto. She scolded our son, the flesh of her flesh. Now, it seemed like he was just mine alone. "Willow, maybe I've been too good to you, allowing you to hurt me without any restraint." I moved my son behind me and looked at Willow. "Who gave you permission to bring him back?" Her face instantly changed, as if my words had hit a nerve. She glanced at Makoto, then stepped in front of him, shouting at me, "Do I need to inform you before bringing someone home? This house is mine now. I can bring whoever I want back." She said it with such an air of entitlement. It instantly set my temper alight. We haven't even been to court yet, and she's already so brazen as to bring her lover home. I sent my son into the study, then calmly said, "Be good. Daddy and Mommy need to talk. You go in first." My son looked at me, then glanced at Willow and Makoto. His eyes were full of confusion. After my son went into the study, I closed the door and finally faced Willow. "Willow, this house was bought with my parents' retirement savings. It's in their names, not yours. Get that straight." My words seemed to have completely enraged Willow. Her face was filled with disbelief, and she stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe to her, I had always been the quiet, obedient man. After the shock wore off, Willow's fury surfaced. She gritted her teeth and spat. "What do you mean by that, George? I can't believe you're this kind of person. I was really blind to marry you." Willow almost screamed, her face twisted with anger. Makoto, standing beside her, watched the whole scene with a look of amusement. That statement, if anyone should have said it, it should have been me. I was the one who was blind for marrying her. Willow, seeing that I wasn't responding, grabbed Makoto's hand right in front of me and said, "I'm not only bringing Makoto here, but let me tell you the truth, Makoto will be living here from now on. What are you going to do about it?" Chapter 14. Willow glared at me with an air of superiority, as if she could see through all my helplessness. Her eyes were filled with provocation and a triumphant gleam, as if, in this moment, she had completely seized control of the situation and shattered me. Anger surged within me, like a flame being ignited, burning fiercely. I clenched my fists tightly, struggling to keep my emotions in check, refusing to let myself explode. I looked at Willow, and her face began to blur in my vision, replaced by the beautiful memories of our past and the painful wreckage of the present. After a moment, I spoke slowly. "Fine, if you're so eager to have your lover move in, I won't stop you, but don't come crying to me later." At my words, Willow paused for a moment, then laughed mockingly. "You must be out of your mind." "Fine, I'm curious to see what you'll do." With that, she dragged Makoto's hand and entered the bedroom. In a daze, I caught a glimpse of Makoto's smirk, a smug look on his face that was utterly revolting. Makoto was nothing more than a pretty boy, a gigolo. Even Willow's mother could see through him, yet she still fell for his act, as though enchanted by him. This house was left to me by my parents. Willow's behavior was already disgusting enough, but now she was trying to desecrate the home my parents had built. It made me feel sick to my stomach. If my parents' spirits were watching from the afterlife, I wonder if they would want to confront Willow, but I wasn't about to let her get away with this. I grabbed my phone and called the police. "Hello, this is Daju Community, Building 99, Unit 99. Someone has trespassed into my home. After all, I was the rightful owner of this house. Makoto was clearly trespassing. Since Willow had no shame, it was time to show her and everyone else her true colors." I walked into the room and sat down, waiting for the police to arrive. From the neighboring room, I could occasionally hear the sound of laughter. The police arrived quickly, with several officers entering the house in a swift and professional manner. Willow and Makoto's faces immediately turned pale. Willow clearly hadn't anticipated that I would call the police. She looked at me with a mix of anger and fear in her eyes. One of the officers, the lead investigator, asked, "Who made the call? What happened here?" His eyes swept between Willow and me. I stood up and calmly explained the situation. "It was me who called. This man has entered my house without my permission." Willow tried to protest, but the officers didn't give her the chance. They began to inquire about the specifics of the situation and check the property ownership documents. Once everything was confirmed, the officers' gazes towards Willow grew even more serious. According to the law, unauthorized entry into a property without the owner's consent is considered trespassing. "Mr. Makoto, please cooperate with our investigation and temporarily leave the premises." Makoto's face turned ashen. He tried to signal Willow with his eyes, silently pleading for help, but Willow seemed just as helpless, her composure faltering. She looked utterly defeated. Chapter 15. In the end, Makoto was escorted away by the police. Since Willow and I were still legally married, the police didn't take any action against her. After Makoto was taken away, Willow shot me a venomous glare. She pointed at me and said, "All right, you've got guts now. Just wait." With that, Willow changed her clothes and slammed the door behind her. She was probably going to find Makoto. After all, now that Makoto had been taken away by the police, Willow definitely couldn't sit still. Once Willow left, the world felt much quieter. The next day, I received Willow's divorce petition. It seemed like she and Makoto had planned this out. In court, Willow fabricated facts and created chaos. Her ugly face seared into my memory. She was crying uncontrollably, her voice a constant shriek. She had clearly practiced this performance often. If you didn't know the truth, it would be easy to be fooled by her act. The judge looked at Willow with sympathy, but when I presented the evidence of her affair, everyone in the courtroom turned to look at her in utter shock. Willow was speechless, as though she had been struck by lightning. The look of defiance in her eyes vanished, replaced by emptiness. After a brief silence, she suddenly became enraged, her face turning a deep shade of red. It was as if all the blood in her body rushed to her face. She pointed at me, her finger trembling with fury, her voice shrill and piercing. "You're slandering me. These pieces of evidence are fake. I would never do such a thing." I coldly watched her, my heart unmoved. I had already anticipated she would deny everything, as that was her usual way. I shook my head slightly and handed the evidence to the judge, silently urging him to continue reviewing it. The judge took the documents, carefully flipping through them, his brows furrowing deeper. Willow's denial had only made things worse, further damaging her credibility in the courtroom. "Ms. Liu," the judge finally spoke, his voice steady and authoritative. "These documents clearly show that you had an inappropriate relationship with Mr. Makoto. Your actions have severely impacted your marriage with the plaintiff. I hope you can face the facts and cease making baseless defenses." Willow's face grew even darker. She still wanted to argue, but the judge was no longer willing to listen. He waved his hand, signaling the court staff to restrain her. Ultimately, since Willow had contributed little to the family, and the house was in my name, the property was awarded to me. Willow walked away with nothing. But the matter didn't end there. I handed the judge a loan document for 500,000 yuan and explained the situation. I had borrowed this money to cover household expenses, but Willow had used it to buy a car for her lover. I requested the judge to make a stern ruling. At this point, the judge seemed almost unable to believe what he was hearing. Could there really be a woman so foolish? It shattered everyone's expectations. After investigating, the judge ruled that Willow must return the 500,000 yuan, as it was not part of our shared marital assets. Willow had no choice but to have Makoto pawn the car and scrape together the money to repay me. Only then was the divorce finalized. When I received the divorce agreement, I felt a sense of relief and even happiness, but I didn't show it. Willow's gaze as she looked at me was filled with pure hatred. Chapter 16. Willow snorted coldly and said, "Don't think you'll ever see me again." She still thought I was the same man who loved her deeply, but little did she know. My love for her had long disappeared after she repeatedly tormented me. Willow was truly narcissistic. Looking at her now, I couldn't help but feel a bit sorry for her. She grabbed Makoto's hand and said they were going to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Makoto didn't look happy at all. In fact, he seemed rather displeased. Yes, he had been using Willow for her ability to provide for him, to let him live a life of ease. But now that Willow had lost me, what could she still offer Makoto? Seeing that Makoto was reluctant, Willow's face showed a trace of shock. She asked, "What's wrong?" Makoto lowered his head and, with a slightly hostile tone, replied, "What wedding? I don't have any money now. I've even pawned my car. How could I afford to marry you?" Makoto was an expert at saying things like this, and Willow was completely susceptible to it. Her initial surprise vanished without a trace. Makoto's words were too convincing. They made her feel that this was a sign of his love for her. Willow then shot me a glance. That look seemed to say, "See, he's the man I've been looking for all my life. You don't deserve me." But I stood there, unmoved. As a man, I understood Makoto all too well. Willow tightly gripped Makoto's hand, looking at him with deep affection, almost like a lovesick dog. She said, "Makoto, I have some savings, enough for us to have a wedding." When Makoto heard this, his eyes lit up with hope. Without hesitation, the two of them walked off, their hands entwined. Hearing Willow's words, I couldn't help but feel that all my efforts over the years had been in vain. Every month, my salary was deposited into Willow's account on time. It was over 10,000 yuan a month. Yet, I didn't even have 100 yuan to my name. Aside from household expenses, we had no other spending. My son wore the same set of clothes for several seasons, while Willow swapped out bags constantly, never repeating an outfit. Yet despite all this, she was still dissatisfied with her life. She often complained about how difficult her life was, comparing me to other, better husbands. I had always been careful in serving Willow, cherishing our relationship, but she had used my love for her time and time again to hurt me. I had thought Willow just didn't have enough money, that I wasn't able to give her a better life, but now I realized, Willow had been secretly saving money all these years. She had been waiting for Makoto to come back and marry her. All the effort I had put in over the years had been wasted. I looked at the divorce certificate in my hand, and a surge of emotions rose within me. When we married, the certificate was red. Now that we were divorcing, it was still red. Why didn't they design divorce certificates in black? But then, I realized it made sense. Marriage was a joyful event, and divorce, though painful, also brought liberation, so it could still be considered a relief, a form of joy. In a way, it was like celebrating a marriage and a divorce. Two happy occasions rolled into one. When I returned home, Willow called to say she was coming to pick up her things. I agreed right away. I glanced at her room. There were her things. My money had bought everything in there. Clothes, jewelry, bags, each of them was paid for by me. But now, since we were divorced, it was better that she take them quickly. I didn't want to see them anymore. Soon enough, Willow arrived, with Makoto by her side. The two of them were holding hands, their fingers intertwined, like a couple deeply in love. Chapter 17. It disgusted me to see them like that, but it didn't matter. No matter how sweet they were now, in a few days, they would experience even more pain. Willow raised her wedding certificate at me, her face full of mockery. "Marrying the person you truly love is completely different," she said. "Right, Makoto." She looked at Makoto with a face full of happiness, almost like she was showing off some victory to me. I felt nothing. I just looked at them like I was watching a clown. Makoto glanced at me and coldly said, "Of course, it's been so miserable for you all these years. Following this waste, I didn't indulge them. After all, we were already divorced, and the house was mine now. So I said, "Take your stuff and get out. The farther, the better." To them, my words must have seemed like the last outburst of a powerless man, but Willow only smiled more brightly at my anger. She said, "By the way, I forgot to tell you, in a couple of days, Makoto and I are getting married. You must come." Okay, I hadn't planned on going, but seeing them in such a disgusting state, I decided I'd give her a special gift. After Willow moved out, I immediately changed the locks on the house. I didn't want this disgusting person to bother me anymore. I also hired a cleaning service to thoroughly clean the house, removing every trace of Willow's presence. Willow and Makoto's wedding plans were evidently public knowledge. Many friends and family called me to comfort me, telling me not to be sad. Some even offered to introduce me to a new wife. I pretended to be downcast, acting like a man who had been abandoned. I heard that Willow's mother had caused a scene after finding out, disagreeing with the marriage, but in the end, her efforts were in vain. Willow had loved Makoto since childhood, and now that he was finally divorced, she was determined to marry him. It was a huge opportunity for her. How could she possibly give it up? The wedding went ahead as planned. There were many guests and relatives, and I prepared my special gift before leaving. Indeed, it was Willow's medical report. I heard that when Willow and Makoto were on the stage, passionately kissing, the big screen suddenly flashed her medical report. Everyone at the wedding was shocked. Willow's face was filled with disbelief. Makoto looked at her with suspicion. Willow, thinking it was a fake, hurriedly tried to explain, but by then, Makoto's expression was no longer the joyful one from earlier. A seed of doubt had been planted in both of their minds. Once that doubt was sown, it would be hard to get rid of. After the wedding, Willow called me. She was furious. "Did you do this?" she yelled. I laughed and said, "So what if I did? You invited me to your wedding. Remember, I just brought you a special gift." When Willow heard this, she almost went crazy. She cursed me, one insult after another. The things she said were too vile to even repeat. I hung up on her immediately. The angrier she got, the better I felt. The pain she had caused me couldn't even compare to this. This was just the beginning. I was going to make sure she paid me back, slowly. Eventually, Willow decided to go to the hospital for a thorough checkup. Turns out, it was a decision she'd regret. Chapter 18. Terminal illness. In the advanced stage, it wasn't actually a terminal illness, and it could have been treated if it had been detected earlier, but Willow only found out now, and by then, it had already reached its final stages. She quickly checked into the hospital and began the admission process. I heard that the wedding house they had prepared together was never even lived in before they both moved into the hospital. One day, while I was at work, Willow called me again and again. It was starting to annoy me. Finally, I picked up. On the other end of the line, Willow was cursing at me. She said, "Did you know I had a terminal illness all along? Did you do this on purpose?" Her voice was full of fury, grating on the ears, but since we were already divorced, I didn't feel the need to pretend anymore. I said bluntly, "Yeah, I've known you've been sick for a while. Better die sooner and reincarnate into a better life. Maybe try to be a better animal next time." My words nearly sent Willow into a rage. Her voice trembled, and she was so angry she could barely speak. She said a few more words before breaking into a coughing fit. I didn't hold back. I kept adding fuel to the fire. "Getting a terminal illness right after your wedding. Congratulations." On the other end, I heard her frantically calling for a nurse, yelling that the patient had coughed up blood. Then the line went dead. I hung up the phone. After Willow left my life, I started to focus more on my work. I didn't know if it was because of Willow's curse, but my career started to take off. My boss appreciated me and sent me to the branch office as a manager. Under my leadership, the branch's performance grew steadily. Meanwhile, Makoto's life seemed to be falling apart. After Willow's hospitalization, I heard she was pregnant, but Makoto didn't want the baby. He had only been with Willow for her money, and a child would only be a burden to him. When I arrived at the branch office, I discovered something. The small company Makoto had set up was actually a downstream operation for our branch office, and our company was its client. I never expected that fate would deal him such a hand. "Makoto, after all these years, you've schemed to use Willow for your own gain. You destroyed my family and caused me so much pain. I didn't hesitate to cancel all business cooperation between our companies." Makoto was just starting his business, and our projects were crucial to him. Soon, I got a call from him. It was directed to the project manager, who, of course, was me. Makoto's voice sounded much more humble than I was used to, like he was trying to flatter me. I had never seen him like this before. It was almost laughable. He asked, "Hello, is there something wrong? Why was the contract terminated?" A cold smile crossed my lips, and I mocked Makoto internally. After a pause, I slowly said, Your company is too small. Let's talk about cooperation once you've grown a bit. Makoto seemed to recognize my voice and suddenly lost his temper. His tone turned vicious and confrontational. Through gritted teeth, he spat. George, is that you? You're behind this, aren't you? Fuck, you've been playing me all along. You knew about Willow's terminal illness, didn't you? Makoto's voice thundered like a wild animal. It sounded like he wanted to crawl through the phone line and rip me apart. Chapter 19. I could almost imagine how ridiculous Makoto must have looked when he was angry. At this moment, I couldn't help but laugh. I thought back to how Makoto and Willow had flaunted themselves in front of me. Now, seeing him like this, it really was laughable. I deliberately lowered my voice and said, yeah, I knew all along. I even set you up to be the one to clean up the mess. By the way, I heard Willow is pregnant. Congratulations. You're going to be a dad so soon. My words were dripping with mockery. I wanted to make him feel uncomfortable, to make him suffer. As expected, Makoto was incensed. He roared like a lion, furious. He almost screamed, damn it, George, if I ever see you again, you won't get away with it. Makoto had completely lost his usual suave demeanor. Now, his true face was showing, bitter and furious. He kept shouting, who knows if that kid's even mine? Whoever wants it can have it. I wasn't sure if he was trying to provoke me, but I found it laughable. After all, I had always treated Willow well, and she had often called me a simp in front of him. If that was how he thought of me, it was almost comical. Willow was nothing to me now. She was even lower than a dog in my eyes. She didn't hold any position in my heart anymore. I sneered. Is that so? Well, I don't know. But you're certainly doing a great job as the rescuer. It's like a buy one get one free deal. Ha ha ha. As soon as I said that, Makoto on the other end of the line began ranting even more furiously. I hung up the phone without hesitation. I couldn't be bothered to waste more time with him. After canceling the contract with Makoto, I immediately started looking for new partners. My company's sales channels opened up quickly. It was clear now, Makoto was the toxic element in the company. Soon, my salary rose as well. From what used to be a measly $1,000 or $2,000 a month, I was now earning $500,000 a year. Willow, bet you didn't see this coming. The failure you look down on is now someone with a name and status. As my position rose, some of my relatives and friends even began introducing me to potential partners. The women they introduced were all in their early 20s, with looks and bodies that put Willow to shame. But the best part was their character, honest, loyal, and free of deceit. After my previous failed marriage, I became more cautious about relationships. No longer impulsive, I made sure not to repeat my past mistakes. Finally, through a friend back home, I met a girl named Anna. She had a great personality, sweet and affectionate. She was a primary school teacher with a good income. Her appearance and figure were light years ahead of Willow's. I cherished this relationship deeply, but after my past experience, I had learned the importance of balance. I couldn't just give without receiving. Anna was also great with my son. Every time I came home, there was always a big table of food waiting for me. No matter how late I came home, there was always a light left on for me. I often thought, if I had known that leaving Willow would lead me to meet someone like Anna, would I have wanted to divorce her even sooner? The worst thing in a relationship is being with someone who doesn't appreciate you, and I, on the other hand, had been too quick to cherish Willow, making her the most important person in my life. That's why she kept hurting me, over and over again. A few days later, Willow's call came through again. It was a video call. People only go to the temple when they have something to ask for. When she called, it was never for anything good. Chapter 20. I immediately decided to hang up the phone, but before I could, another video call from Willow came through. In the end, I chose to answer it. The moment I answered, I was taken aback. It had only been half a month since I last saw Willow, but she looked completely different now. She was lying in a hospital bed, wearing an oversized hospital gown, with a breathing tube attached to her nose. Her head was completely shaved, and her body had become alarmingly thin. She was almost unrecognizable, yet, her tone was still as forceful as ever, as if nothing had changed. She almost shouted in anger, "Tell me, George, was it you who canceled the contract with Makoto's company?" Her tone was filled with strong suspicion, as if she was entitled to know. Did Willow still think I was the same George she could manipulate and control before? Did she still not realize how things had changed? I replied, "Yes, I did." "So what?" I didn't bother with a kind tone. Willow's anger flared, and I could hear her breathing heavily over the phone. The breathing tube shook with every exhale, but she kept her fury in check as best as she could. She continued, "George, why are you doing this? Do you have any idea how much you've hurt me?" I scoffed and coldly retorted, "Hurt you? Do you think I'm the one who's suffering? You showed me no mercy back then." Willow went silent for a moment, probably trying to collect her emotions. Then, in an almost pleading tone, she said, "George, I know I made mistakes before, but now, look at me. Can't you help me just this once, for the sake of our past? Looking at Willow now, I found the whole situation oddly amusing. She never came to me when she was sick. Now, in her current state, she wasn't asking me for help either. Yet, it was Makoto's company that had its contract cancelled, and now here she was, begging me. Willow, you really are the type to fall for anything. I couldn't help but admire Makoto's tactics. He played a good hand, using Willow as his pawn when he had no power left. I chuckled and said, I didn't plan on destroying you, but since he's asking for it, don't blame me. I'll make sure to deal with that guy. My words completely enraged Willow. She loved Makoto deeply, and tormenting him would be like torturing her. How could she stand it? She almost screamed at me over the phone. George, how could you be so cruel? I curse you to a horrible death. Her words made me smile. I calmly responded, if anyone's dying, it's you first. I glanced at her on the screen and added, oh, by the way, don't call me again. I'm afraid my current lady might misunderstand. I intentionally raised my hand so that she could see Anna's delicate white fingers. Willow froze, staring at the screen in disbelief. Her face, already pale, drained even further, leaving it looking almost lifeless. At that moment, she looked like a ghost. I thought, if I talked to her for another minute, she might actually die of anger. I quickly hung up the call. It's funny how the tables turn. Willow, now you're the one in pain. Do you remember how you treated me back then? The heartache you caused me, did you ever feel that? Now you want me to spare your lover, Makoto. Is that even possible? If I let him go, I wouldn't be able to forgive myself. Since I answered Willow's call, my hatred for Makoto only grew stronger. Chapter 21. In my heart, I swore that I would make Makoto pay for everything. The next day, Willow's mother came to find me. As soon as she stepped inside, she stormed up and said she was here to see David. I bluntly said, we're divorced. Please don't come and bother us anymore. I made sure to emphasize the last few words. Lou mother looked past me and noticed Anna in the kitchen, busy with something. Her face darkened immediately. With a scowl, she snapped, what do you mean by this, George? You just got divorced, and now you've already found yourself a little vixen. Lou mother looked exactly like an angry tigress. No wonder Willow was the same when she was angry. I couldn't help but reminisce about my life with Willow. Every little thing I failed to do perfectly would make Willow give me that look, as if she wanted to devour me alive. Her words would cut deep, and there were many times I almost broke down, but for the sake of the family, I endured. My parents had passed away early. Over the years, I had been the one supporting Lou mother. Every week, I would buy groceries and check on her. Though Willow had her own salary, she never cared to help. She always waited for me to do everything. Every year, on Lou mother's birthday or when she had a small illness, I would be the one running around. I vividly remembered one night when Lou mother called me at around 2 a.m., saying she wasn't feeling well. Willow didn't care. I was the one who rushed to her home, took her to the hospital, and dealt with everything. When I thought back on all the things I had done, I couldn't help but feel that it had all been in vain. I looked at Lou mother and said, so, what? Willow cheated on me during our marriage, and now you expect me to mourn for her after the divorce? I didn't show any respect. After all these years of being kind to her, she never expressed a single word of gratitude. She acted as if everything I did for her was a given. It was really disheartening. Lou mother's face turned pale at my words. She seemed to be at a loss for words, shocked by my response. I almost found it funny. I continued, if that's all, then please leave. It's better we have less contact from now on. Don't want to give anyone the wrong impression. I started to close the door, but to my surprise, Lou mother grabbed a nearby metal spade and swung it at me. I wasn't prepared for the blow. She struck me hard, and I was knocked out of balance. The blow left me dazed, and blood started to pour from my head. In my hazy state, I heard Lou mother shout, I'll teach you a lesson for Willow's sake, you heartless bastard. At that moment, I had no strength left to defend myself. The spade was meant for digging in the backyard. I felt a searing pain in my head, and before I knew it, I collapsed to the floor. When I woke up, I found myself in a hospital bed. Anna was there by my side, her head resting on my bedside. When she saw me awake, her face lit up with tears of joy. My head was wrapped in bandages, and though it still hurt, the doctor assured me that there was no serious damage to my brain, just some external trauma. The hardest part was for Anna. According to the nurse on duty, Anna had been crying non-stop when she saw my condition. She hadn't slept a wink, so worried that she couldn't calm down. She even said that if something happened to me, she wouldn't want to live anymore. When I heard that, I was both touched and slightly incredulous. To think that someone cared for me this much after all I had been through. Chapter 22. It felt like the kind of love story you'd only see in a TV drama. But when I saw the dark circles under Anna's eyes, I realized that this was true love. For all these years, Willow had kept me from my destined match. If only I had met Anna earlier, I wouldn't have had to suffer so much pain. It was such a shame I wasted so many years before finding her. The best part was that Anna was thoughtful and understanding. She didn't care that I was divorced. Anna made me a lot of nourishing soups, insisting that takeout was unhealthy. She even personally fed me, and it felt like I was living in a dream. Comparing her to Willow, the difference was night and day. Had I not met Anna, I would have thought all women were like Willow. Anna, in a way, was like a balm for my heart, healing me in ways I never imagined. As I was about to be discharged from the hospital, I decided to report Lou's mother for attacking me, although Anna strongly advised against it, telling me to let it go and forgive her. I knew that if I didn't take action, I would regret it. I couldn't just let this slide and feel sorry for myself. Forgiving your enemies sounded ridiculous to me. I said, "Is this the police? Someone intentionally attacked me, and I have the security footage." Lou's mother had been standing right at my door when she attacked me, and the security camera at the entrance had caught the entire incident on tape. Chapter 23. The police quickly accepted my case. With solid evidence, they took Lou's mother into custody. She could only be released if I wrote a letter of forgiveness. Otherwise, she would face 3 years of prison time. Willow kept calling me on video. The moment I answered, she screamed, her voice trembling. "George, my mom was wrong. I admit it. But you can't do this to her. She only hit you once. She didn't kill you. You're being so dramatic. Write her a letter of forgiveness and get her out." I should have been angry, but instead, I just found myself impressed. At this point, she was still acting like this. It was unbelievable. Even if someone was genuinely considering writing the letter, after hearing what she said, I couldn't imagine anyone still being willing to do it. What did she mean by, "She only hit you once. She didn't kill you"? Is this what a human being says? I really wanted to tear Willow's heart out to see what it was made of. How someone could be so cold. It was deeply disheartening. I didn't give Willow any face. After all, we were already divorced, and I had no reason to care. I said firmly, "Is that so? Let me tell you something. Even if a knife is at my throat, I'm not writing that letter." My words were resolute. Willow's pale face twitched a couple of times. In my memory, she didn't even seem to care about her mother. Both of them were terrible people. On the phone, Willow's voice suddenly became sharp and shrill. It was as if she was pouring out all her anger and frustration. "George, you heartless man, how can you treat my mom like this? She's your elder. Now that you've gotten a little power, you think you can treat us like this? Let me tell you, if you don't write that letter, you're going to regret it. I won't let you get away with this." Her voice grew more hysterical with each word. Looking at her twisted face, I replied, my voice hard as steel, "Then bring it on. Show me what you've got. Don't make me lose all respect for you." After saying that, I hung up the phone. Willow seemed like one of those half-dead people, still threatening me. It was almost laughable. I was curious what kind of good fruit Willow thought she was going to hand me. After taking half a month off to recover, I returned to work. The orders for the branch office increased, and my boss started to take more notice of me. One day, Makoto suddenly showed up at the office, claiming that our company's products had issues. He had even teamed up with several suppliers to stir up trouble. A lot of people gathered around, including an important client I had just met with. The suppliers, led by Makoto, were all extremely agitated. They were shouting loudly, demanding that our company provide an explanation. The situation became very chaotic, and my client looked quite flustered, anxiously watching everything unfold. Seeing Makoto acting this way, I felt like slapping him across the face. It was obvious he was trying to get revenge for the termination of our contract. Makoto pointed at me and said, "You're the project lead, right? What kind of trash are you selling? Can this even be used?" He had a smug, arrogant look on his face. Chapter 24. All eyes were on me, waiting for me to provide an explanation. Our company works in the food industry, and Makoto claimed that consuming our product had caused food poisoning. He said he had to undergo a gastric lavage and was admitted to the ICU. Clearly, this was nonsense. Our products go through rigorous quality control, and they are safe enough for pregnant women and even babies to consume. We strictly follow national food safety standards. How could there be any problem? It was obvious that Makoto was just trying to stir up trouble. I took the product from his hands and sniffed it. I quickly realized that this wasn't even a product made by our company. I looked straight at Makoto and asked, "Are you sure this is something made by our company?" Makoto, caught off guard by my question, started to look a little nervous. He stammered, "Of course it is, don't you know? You're the ones who should be aware." I sneered and turned to my assistant. "Go and get one of our company's products." I placed both the product Makoto had brought and one of our company's products on the table. I opened the packages, and the rice cakes from our company shimmered in the sunlight, clear and pure, without any impurities. I brought 2 transparent glass cups, filled them with water, and placed both rice cakes in the cups. Soon, Both rice cakes started to dissolve in the water. Our company's product, made from high-quality, pure rice, dissolved easily, turning the water a milky white. Anyone with experience could tell the difference in quality just by watching it dissolve. The two cups formed a stark contrast. Makoto's product, on the other hand, had turned a pale yellow and was completely unappetizing. It was hard to even look at. I couldn't even guess where he had gotten it from. Makoto's face darkened instantly. I turned to the suppliers who had come with him and said, "Look, it's obvious that these are not the same product. Our company's products come with a quality guarantee. It's impossible for them to be faulty. You can go to our workshop and test it yourself." As soon as I said this, many people were left speechless, staring in awe. The suppliers who had been causing trouble with Makoto now started to take interest in our products. Some even expressed interest in establishing long-term partnerships with our company. Makoto's little stunt ended up backfiring. The media picked up the story and it quickly went viral, trending on social media. In a time when food safety is a major concern, our company's products were indirectly promoted by Makoto, saving us a lot on advertising. The number of inquiries from businesses looking to collaborate with us skyrocketed. I really had to thank Makoto for this. I still remember how defeated and embarrassed he looked as he left the company. After this incident, Makoto didn't cause much trouble anymore. He became much quieter. Even Willow seemed to disappear from the radar. This, in my opinion, felt a little too abnormal. After our company terminated the contract with Makoto, his business was facing an asset crisis. I heard it was on the brink of bankruptcy, unable to even pay its employees. Could Willow stand by and let that happen? Would Makoto just let me off the hook? So, in my view, the current calm was simply the calm before the storm. Chapter 25. Sure enough, it didn't take long before Willow came to my house to stir up trouble. Yes, she came in person, sitting in a wheelchair, with Makoto pushing her along. Just as I had expected, they really were a couple, standing by each other in tough times. Willow looked terrifying. She had withered away, like a dead vine. Her once proud chest was now gone, and her face had become hollow and sunken, resembling a skeleton. Her eyes bulged unnaturally. It seemed Makoto had strongly insisted on her being discharged. Otherwise, given Willow's condition, the doctors would not have advised her to leave the hospital. At that moment, I was at home, watching TV with my son. He was happily playing with a toy gun in the living room. My girlfriend Anna was busy in the kitchen, creating a cozy atmosphere in the house. It felt like home. When Willow entered and saw this scene, her expression changed instantly. The sight before her deeply wounded her heart. She hadn't expected that after leaving her, I would be living so well. It was the kind of life people would envy. Willow's tone was as sharp as before. It seemed that her illness had not calmed her temper in the slightest. She said, "George, I called you so many times. Why didn't you answer?" I glanced at my phone, only to find dozens of missed calls. The company's business had been improving these days, and there were a lot more matters to handle. I kept a clear distinction between work and home, and whenever I came home, I always kept my phone on silent. I replied, "Didn't we agree that after the divorce, we shouldn't contact each other?" Willow shot me a look, but there was no trace of embarrassment in her eyes. She looked at me as if I were a stranger. It was true, since leaving her, I had appeared much younger, reinvigorated by love. I had entered a new phase of life, full of energy and vitality. At that moment, Anna must have heard the commotion outside and came into the living room. She was wearing a cream-colored spaghetti strap dress, looking every bit the gentle and refined woman. When Willow saw Anna, her eyes were filled with complicated emotions, shock, disbelief, and jealousy. I could clearly recall how Willow used to say, "After you leave me, you'll never meet someone like me again." Now that I thought about it, she was right in some sense. I truly hadn't met anyone like her, a strange, terrible person. She loved spending money, didn't care about the family, loved to argue, loved to make a scene, and even cheated. She had never treated us as her family. She had always been like that with my parents and my son. "Who are you?" Willow's voice trembled. She had never met Anna before. I hadn't mentioned her to anyone outside. Only a few close friends and colleagues knew about her. It wasn't that I didn't want to flaunt it. Rather, I preferred to keep our happiness private, behind closed doors. As long as the two of us were happy, that was all that mattered. I looked at Willow, sneered, and then introduced Anna warmly. "Oh, I forgot to introduce her. This is my girlfriend Anna. By the way, we're planning to get our marriage license next week. She'll be my wife soon." Upon hearing this, Anna's pale face turned a light shade of pink. She looked even more shy and adorable, although Willow was also quite attractive. Compared to Anna, she was on a completely different level. When Willow heard this, a flicker of anger appeared on her face. Chapter 26. Willow gritted her teeth, her eyes seemingly ready to shoot fire. Makoto, standing behind her, gently pushed the wheelchair. His expression was complicated, Concern for Willow's condition mixed with helplessness at the situation unfolding. She said, "George, how can you treat me like this?" Willow's voice was sharp and trembling, as if she was about to pour out all the resentment and anger she had built up inside. "We used to be the ones who understood each other the most, but now you're so heartless, replacing me with this woman." Her words nearly made me spit blood in her face. Even now, she was so self-absorbed, thinking I found another woman just to replace her. I really wanted to ask Willow how she managed to maintain such thick skin. How could she be so delusional? It was utterly baffling. I replied, "Willow, do you not see? She's prettier than you, younger than you, more understanding than you. Replace you? Where does your confidence come from?" My words cut deep, like a sharp blade driving into Willow's heart. Her face grew even paler, and her brows furrowed tightly. Then her expression twisted in pain, looking almost monstrous, as if she had suffered some massive psychological blow. She clutched her chest with one hand, her face contorting as if she were about to collapse. Willow had been ill for a long time, and this emotional outburst had clearly worsened her condition. She looked as though she might drop dead at any moment. Seeing her like this, I didn't feel any sympathy. In fact, I found a sense of satisfaction. After all, this was nothing compared to how she had treated me. Anna, looking worried, asked, "Darling, should we call an ambulance?" Her face was full of concern and fear. Ordinary people were hardly accustomed to seeing such scenes, and since Anna was young and inexperienced, seeing such an event caused her to panic. I glanced at Anna, offering her a look of reassurance. I gently patted her hand, signaling her to go back to the room. If Makoto wasn't calling an ambulance, why should I? Besides, they came here on their own. Why should I be responsible for what happens to them? Seeing that Willow wasn't responding, Makoto lost his temper and pointed at me, shouting, "George, are you even human? She's still your wife." I couldn't believe Makoto was actually saying that. It made me feel pity for Willow, realizing the kind of men she had chosen. What a ridiculous man to end up with. It was almost laughable. Facing Makoto's accusations, I remained calm, as if the waters of my mind had not been disturbed. "Are you confused? You're Willow's husband now, not me. We have no relationship anymore." My words immediately made Makoto uncomfortable. He glanced at Willow, who was too pained to speak, and there was no trace of sympathy in his eyes. In fact, I could detect a hint of disgust. Willow's current condition was far from something that could be described as normal. Makoto had originally been with her for her money, and now that she had no value left to him, she had become a burden, a liability. Makoto's reaction wasn't surprising to me. He said, "Aren't you afraid she'll die here? She's your son's mother." Chapter 27. I couldn't understand how Makoto's mind worked, that he would come up with something like this. I instinctively thought, could they be here today to ask for money using David as leverage? Sure enough, my brief moment of contemplation made Makoto think I was afraid. He then continued, "Do you think you can replace the love Willow gave him with some stepmother? A stepmother is always a stepmother. George, think carefully." I crossed my arms and coldly looked at Makoto, not responding. At that moment, my gaze towards them felt like I was looking at circus clowns, full of mockery and amusement. I glanced at Willow and coldly said, "So what?" Makoto, thinking I was finally softening, showed a glint of triumph in his eyes. In that moment, I realized that their visit had likely been Makoto's idea. Willow was completely under his influence. He spoke, and she treated his words like commands from an emperor. She was utterly obedient to him. Makoto grinned wickedly, seemingly certain of his success, and finally said what he had been building up to. 1 million. Not much, really. I just want to get Willow's illness treated. After that, David can visit his mother whenever he wants. Makoto thought his excuse was flawless. 1 million to treat Willow's illness, and in the future, David wouldn't be without a mother. I could even imagine how Makoto had likely sweet-talked Willow into this, telling her everything would be better once she had the money. I could almost picture her tearfully agreeing to the plan, but I knew exactly what kind of man Makoto was. Even if I gave him 1 million, he would never use the money for Willow's treatment. The only real possibility was that he would abandon her and run off with the money. Only someone as naive as Willow would believe such lies. In this world, I was the only one who could genuinely go to such lengths to treat Willow, but unfortunately, she didn't deserve such dedication from me. Makoto, confident I would agree, waited for my response. Just then, David suddenly appeared out of nowhere, with a water gun in hand. He sprayed Willow and Makoto, shouting, bad people, die, bad people." Though children often speak without thinking, sometimes they can be more perceptive than adults. Who is good and who is bad is often clearer to them. I remembered when we went to the parent-teacher conference, David's little speech, so it wasn't surprising at all that he'd say this now. Makoto, after getting sprayed, didn't immediately help Willow wipe off the water. Instead, His first reaction was to look at his suit in distress. He angrily shouted, "Damn brat, do you have any manners?" At that moment, his true face was fully revealed. The image of the polite gentleman he usually wore had vanished entirely. I could tolerate him insulting me, but I couldn't stand him insulting David. I immediately grabbed the iron shovel that my ex-mother-in-law had used to hit me and shouted, "What are you? Who are you calling a brat?" Makoto seemed taken aback by my sudden outburst and quickly retreated, losing all the arrogance he had moments ago. He didn't dare speak with the same tone anymore. His voice softened as he muttered, "Your kid doesn't know any manners. George, you better think about what I said, or David might regret it when he grows up." With that, Makoto left in a huff, pushing Willow out the door, fuming with anger. Chapter 28. Makoto didn't get the 1 million he wanted, and now, he came up with another stunt. I woke up early in the morning to find a bunch of messages from him. He wrote, "George, you're really heartless. Willow has no money for treatment and is about to jump into the river. You'd better come and see her. Make sure to bring the medical fees. Don't come and find a corpse." Reading Makoto's message, I almost burst out laughing. I had to admit, his performances over the past few days had really given me enough material to laugh about for a lifetime. Did he seriously think that I still had feelings for Willow? Was this some kind of pathetic scheme to extort money from me? If Makoto's brain wasn't working, he should just donate it. I casually replied to his message, "Then let her die. The sooner the better. Let her reincarnate as a beast in the next life. Don't be human in the next life, since you clearly don't deserve it." My words dripped with sarcasm. I was certain Makoto would lose his temper just reading it. Just as I was about to put my phone down, Willow called me on a video call. I didn't want to answer, but today I didn't have much to do, and I figured I could have some fun with these two clowns. So, I pressed accept, but it wasn't Willow on the other end. It was Makoto. His face looked disheveled, his brows tightly furrowed, eyes red-rimmed, clearly sleep-deprived for days. The background showed a bridge in the city. The wind was blowing his already thin hair in all directions. He pointed at the screen, his voice seething with anger. "George, you better come with the money today. Otherwise, if something happens to Willow, you can start preparing to collect the body." I could feel his madness even through the screen. I quietly used another phone to record his words, just in case he tried to pin something on me later. Looking at Makoto on the screen, I wore a look of amusement and said, "Collect the body? Sure. I'll make sure to burn more paper money for her, so she can stop complaining about not having enough money in the afterlife." My words were full of mockery, aimed at making Makoto lose his composure. Hearing this, Makoto's face turned even darker. He obviously didn't expect me to be so calm and resolute. He quickly flipped the camera. Now, the screen showed Willow sitting in her wheelchair by the riverbank. Half of her wheelchair was already hanging over the water. The only thing holding it in place was Makoto's hand. Though Willow looked deathly ill, she was still a person, and at least weighed around 70 kilos. With the wheelchair, it probably added up to 100 kilos at most. Makoto's build wasn't particularly strong, and it was clear that holding her like this was a huge struggle for him. I stared at the scene for a long time. But it wasn't out of sympathy for Willow. I was more shocked by Makoto's actions. This guy was seriously out of his mind if he thought that money was worth putting someone's life at risk. Was he really so desperate for money? Willow was still his wife. After all, 1 million. Was Willow in his eyes only worth $1 million? Makoto deliberately pointed the camera at Willow, making her speak. Willow's eyes were filled with tears. Her already pale face looked even more sickly, almost completely drained of color, like she was hanging on by a thread. She looked like she was half dead. Thinking about it, I realized that even a normal person would probably be pushed to the edge after being treated like this by Makoto. Chapter 29. Moreover, Willow had always been a half-dead person. She said, "George, if you don't bring the money, I really will die." At this point, I wasn't sure who she was saying it to. It seemed like she was speaking to me, but also to Makoto, or maybe to herself. Her eyes were filled with a mix of emotions. Gone was the arrogant, disdainful look she once had. Instead, there was a trace of regret. After everything she had been through, she had likely seen Makoto for what he really was. Even the most love-struck person must eventually turn around when faced with life and death. I smiled coldly, watching this scene unfold, and replied, "If you want to die, then die. It's none of my business." Makoto seemed to want to say something else. Perhaps my words angered him so much that he lost his grip on the wheelchair. The chair tipped over completely. Willow, still in the chair, fell into the river and vanished from sight. I immediately hung up the phone. At that moment, my emotions were complex. There was a sense of relief, but also an overwhelming sadness. Willow had always been cold and dismissive toward me, never showing me any kindness. But just a moment ago, during those few seconds when the screen was focused on Willow, I saw a glimmer of regret in her eyes. I never imagined that a woman as proud and haughty as her would feel remorse. Willow's fate was hers to bear. She had brought it upon herself. Perhaps my emotions were too evident, and Anna, thinking I was affected by something, hurried over to me, though she didn't know the specifics. She was a sensitive and thoughtful person at heart. She immediately took my hand. I pulled her into my embrace, my heart filled with mixed emotions. In the following days, the news about Makoto's actions became a hot topic. The whole city of A knew about it. The police contacted me to get more details. I handed over the video and messages Makoto had sent me. As evidence, I pressed charges for extortion and blackmail. Taking him to court, Makoto was sentenced to life imprisonment for attempted murder and extortion. His entire fortune was confiscated. The day Makoto was taken into custody, I was present. He had shaved his head and looked haggard, a far cry from the elegant young man he once was. The way he looked at me was filled with complexity. He probably never imagined that his life would end like this. As I watched him being led away, memories of the 3 years I spent married to Willow flashed through my mind like a movie. At that moment, my phone rang. It was Anna calling. She asked, "Where are you? Dinner's ready. I'm waiting for you to come home and eat." Anna's voice was so gentle, it swept away all the unease in my heart. Yes, I had my own little family now. I couldn't let these painful memories continue to dominate my life. It was time to start my new life.